Hello, my name is Joanna Barani. I am a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes educator and author of Good Carbs, Bad Carbs, a book that explains how to enjoy optimum health by eating low glycemic carbs, the right carbs. I've been designing individualized low glycemic meal plans for my patients for nearly 20 years. In this presentation, I will explain the difference between two distinct concepts, the glycemic index and the glycemic load. Before I begin, though, just a note about the image on the screen. You will see this graph throughout this and other presentations about the glycemic load. It depicts quickly and slowly digested carbs, exactly what the glycemic index is all about. First, what is the glycemic index? It's a scale from 0 to 100 that ranks digested carbohydrates by how much they raise blood glucose levels compared to a reference food, which is glucose. So in simple terms, the glycemic index measures how quickly carbohydrates hit the bloodstream as energy for the body. It explains what happens to carbohydrates after we swallow them. The GI value of a carbohydrate is a property or a quality of that carbohydrate. There are essentially two types of carbohydrates with regard to their rate of digestion. High GI carbs, or gushers, are quickly digested and produce a rapid release, or gush, of after-meal glucose into the bloodstream. High GI carbs have values 70 or more on the glycemic index. Low GI carbohydrates, or tricklers, are more slowly digested by the body. Therefore, they produce a slow, gradual release, or trickle, of after-meal glucose into the bloodstream. Low GI carbs have GI values ranging from 0 to 55 on the glycemic index. So we've seen that the glycemic index helps to define part of the digestive quality of a carbohydrate. Now, what is the glycemic load? It is a measurement of how high a blood glucose level will rise after eating a specific amount of a specific carbohydrate. It combines both the quality of the carbohydrate, the GI, and the quantity of the carbohydrate portion into one number. To calculate the glycemic load of a specific quantity of a specific carbohydrate, you would multiply the carbohydrate portion being considered, that is, the number of grams of available carbohydrate in the particular portion being considered, by its glycemic index value. And since the GI value is a percentage, it's divided by 100. Let's look at an apple. Let's say a small 4-ounce apple has 15 grams of carbohydrates. 2 of those are fiber, so we subtract 2 from 15 and get 13 grams of available carbohydrate. That is, what the body will actually digest. So 13 grams of available carbohydrate in that apple is multiplied by the apple's GI value, which is 38. Because GI values are actually a percentage, we divide that 38 by 100. Doing the math, we get 13 times 38 divided by 100. And now we have the glycemic load for that apple, which is 5 grams. Looking at a larger apple, one that weighs approximately 8 ounces and contains 30 grams of carbohydrates, Subtracting its 4 grams of fiber, we multiply the remaining 26 grams of available carbohydrate in this larger apple by the same GI value, which is 38%. The glycemic load for this apple is 10 grams. An apple that is twice as large will have double the glycemic load. Note that the glycemic index value in both of our calculations never changed because we were referring to the same carbohydrate, the apple. But because the portion size changed, so did the glycemic load. So what is the actual meaning of a glycemic load? It's really telling us how much insulin the body needs to produce and release into the bloodstream to deal with the elevation in blood glucose resulting from the digestion of a specific amount of a specific carbohydrate. We just saw that a small apple has a glycemic load of 5 grams and a large apple has a glycemic load of 10 grams. Well, how do these numbers rank? As might be expected, the small apple and even the large apple both have low or small glycemic loads. Here we see the glycemic load tables that were designed by Dr. Walter Willett and his team at Harvard's School of Public Health. He created a ranking system for the GL of individual foods as well as for an entire day's carbohydrate consumption. For individual carbohydrates, the glycemic load is considered low for 0 to 10 grams, moderate for 11 to 19 grams, and high for 20 or more grams. And for a whole day, a glycemic load less than 80 grams is considered low. 80 to 120 is moderate, and a high glycemic load is more than 120 grams. To summarize, the glycemic index ranks carbohydrates based on their immediate blood glucose response. In other words, the GI focuses on the quality of the carbohydrate. The glycemic load helps to predict a blood response to a specific amount of a specific carbohydrate. Glycemic load takes into account both the quality and the quantity of the carbohydrate. If you're interested in finding out more information about this topic, here are a few websites you can look at. Thanks very much for listening.